Hi there. In this video, I'm going to be looking at financial processes and focusing on planning and implementing. So this is really the very first stage in really determining where funds are going to go in a business, because there's only ever going to be a limited number of funds available. So the businesses really need to plan extremely well what they're going to be doing. So, for example, these long-term plans, they include a business's planned capital expenditure and all their planned investments. A capital expenditure is it's what's going to be spent on non-current assets, also known as fixed assets, things that aren't going to be turned into cash within 12 months. So, a non-current asset, and this is something that's going to be used to generate revenue. So, in this sense here, capital isn't so much money, but capital is something, a good or a service, something that produces something else in order to generate revenue. The plans can also cover where the money's going to come from. So what source of finance is there going to be? R&D, research and development, marketing. So they really need to work out exactly where it's coming from and where they're going to be putting it into in order to see their greatest returns. They need to determine as well, what are their financial needs? And that's going to be determined by a number of factors. How big the business is. Okay, is it a large business, small business, medium business? What phase are they in the business life cycle? Are they in the establishment phase? Are they in the growth, maturity, post-maturity? Are they declining? Are they in steady state? Are they in a state of renewal at the moment? And that's what they need the money for. What plans do they have for development in the future? If they're not planning on growing or building more sites or buying more machinery within the next 10 or 20 years, well, then their financial needs are going to be shaped by that as well, because they may not need as much money because they're not going to need it, essentially. What's their capacity to source finance as well? So, do they have a good credit with banks or other lenders in order to be able to actually get that money? Or are they in a state where they're not actually able to source finance? And then, essentially, they need to be able to develop budgets as well. Now, these provide quantitative terms, so facts and figures, hard numbers, hard data, about requirements in order to achieve a particular purpose. So basically what they're doing is they're saying, this is what we need to achieve, or this is what we've got, and this is how we're going to get to where we want to be. So, for example, there's operating budgets. So this is includes things like sales, raw material, labor hours. So this is to do with the operations of the business. So what are the main activities of the business? Project budgets. So anything relating to capital expenditure, to research and development, or even financial budgets. And these are the ones that we're going to be looking at in a lot more detail later on in these videos, which is things in terms of income statements, cash flow statements, the balance sheet. So the actual financial income, inflows, outflows. And now finally, they've also got to really have a really good record system as well. Because data needs to be recorded, it needs to be recorded properly. It needs to be accurate, it needs to be reliable, it needs to be efficient, and it needs to be accessible. This is not just for the sake of them determining their state of the business, but these are legal requirements as well. So a lot of businesses, what they implement is called the double entry system for accounting. And what it does is it means that any data is inserted twice by someone different. And this allows for checks and balances, make sure there's no discrepancies, make sure the first person put it in properly, make sure they haven't missed a number, missed a decimal point, etc. So what are some financial risks, and then what are some controls they can put in? So the financial risks, really, there's a risk for a business to not be able to cover its financial obligations. Okay, and in order to minimize risk, they need to consider the amount of profit that they're going to be making in the first place, and then if that's going to be enough to actually meet their obligations. Are they going to be making enough profit to be able to pay off their debts? So one of the ways, or many ways they can control this, is through implementing a number of strategies, because some of the common causes are things like theft, staff members taking money, fraud, damage or loss of assets of things that the company owns that can be generated into cash, errors in record systems. So this is why that double entry system is quite important. And so, how can they be controlled? Well, actually, having a really clear, set out description of who does what and who's responsible for what as well, so people know where they stand with financial with financial systems. Separating duties. So, for example, the whoever's in charge of one aspect of the business can't also do something else, which might create a conflict of interest, which might then lead to discrepancies in finance. And finally, protection of assets. Something maybe along the lines of an asset register. A list of every asset the business have over a certain amount. Maybe over $300. Has to be engraved with a serial number. Has to be recorded somewhere. People have to know exactly where it is at all times, so that way they can figure out, okay, well, if it's not there, where could it be? Who's got responsibility for it? Who knows where it might be? And they can work out where it might be. So I hope that this brief video has been informative for you in terms of the planning and implementing of financial information and financial systems. The next video continues the processes stage, and we'll look at debt and equity financing and matching the terms and source of finance to the business purpose, to what the business actually needs. Thank you.